Hello, and welcome to my fourth devlog. This time around, I decided to try and start making some art, and while you watch a time-lapse in the background, I'll talk about a few things, including what the game is actually going to be, because I haven't really talked about that. I will be pausing to talk about the footage whenever I am finished with the sprite though. So for context, I'm not an artist and I've never been that good at drawing, with the exception that I'm very good at copying reference drawings, so doing this for my game is definitely outside my expertise. But the good thing is that I did some preparation last year where for a good amount of the year, a couple times a week before some of my uni classes, I practiced pixel art for about 20 minutes at a time, and with the help of some tutorials and some practice, I'm thankfully not diving into the deep end. You can see here the basic idle and long idle animations of the first enemy being done. I'm happy with how things went. It's nice and simple, making things easier for me whilst not looking too bad. If we can also head into the game engine to see how these sprites are actually implemented. With the sprite sheets that I made, I can create different animations for each sprite sheet that seem to be working here. And then we can write some code so that in-game, the correct animations run at the right time. So as we see here, the idle animation is playing in-game now, and if we wait for a little bit, the long idle will play after a bit. When I started drawing pixel art, I was just trying to get familiar with the tool I was using and seeing what difficulties I'd have. So the drawings that I started with weren't that special or good, but then from watching a few tutorials I found that a fun way to practice was to draw different casts of characters and try to mimic the art style of others to see what and why they do what they do. To start, I used a character template to draw a couple of characters from the original Super Smash Bros, which ended up not too bad, but definitely something I couldn't recreate without using an existing character and the template. But all things considered, not a bad starting point. From there, I wanted to see what I could do with just a reference and no template. So I did the cast from the first Slay the Spire, which, if you compare to the original images, went pretty well, especially compared with my previous drawings. But this also shows that, like I said earlier, I'm good at copying references, but this isn't really what I need or want to be good at if I'm making a game with a bunch of original characters. Now coming back to the footage, we can see the finished run animation for my toaster and how it looks in game. I'm happy with how it came out, since it all seems to just work and the toaster looks quite full of a life, especially when compared to before, when it was just a stretched PNG of the game engine logo that comes automatically in each new project. After drawing the Slay the Spire characters, I did a similar thing with the characters from the Portal series, which added the challenge of interpreting things from 3D into 2D. Here you can really see my disparity in skill by comparing GLaDOS, which looks pretty spot on, to Shell, which I had to take some, let's just say, creative liberties to get done. Anyway, here's the dazed animation for the toaster. And let's also have a look at it in-game. We can see that after I damage the toaster and they land, they enter a dazed state, which seems to be working nicely. It's good to see that the animation works for any damage source like this box, not just from kicking them. Later, after the portal drawings, to try and strengthen my weaknesses, I worked on using a reference without copying what I saw, just so I knew what I was drawing but not exactly how to draw it. To do this, I ended up drawing the cast from Risk of Rain 2, which I was very proud of the way things ended up. Each character is distinct and identifiable, and this helped me improve at drawing things of varying complexity on the same pixel scale. One of the things I really liked about drawing these characters, which is kind of obvious to say, is that I could see myself improving the more of them I drew, not just in the quality of the drawings, but also in the speed and thinking, how am I going to get this done? So I'm really glad I did this cast the way I did, and I think this is where I improved the most. We should probably get back to the toaster now, since they're pretty close to being finished. Here's the falling animation that will play while they're dazed midair. Also in the background while I was talking before, I finished their initial wind up and their midair charge up animations. Here is how it all looks in game. I like it how the little lever on their side gets pulled down so that they can launch the toast. It's just a fun little detail. And we can see that things are looking good and all the animations are playing in their intended order. So now I'm just messing around with the toaster to look at all the animations, because with those other animations finished, the toaster enemy is finished for now, and we can just see how everything looks and works with them. If it's out of aggro range, you can see it wake up and then instantly look around because it lost track of you. The last thing I forgot to add to this enemy was, of course, the toast that it shoots out. So here it is and how it looks in game. It looks alright, but seems to be missing something, so I decided to make it explode into some particles when it collides with something. This just gives it that extra something to make the game feel better. With that done, we are finished with the toaster for this devlog at least, so let's move on to the second enemy. Something I didn't realise until I started drawing this was how difficult it would be to draw a chair from side on. Something that shows this is that I looked up references for pixel art chairs drawn side on, and if you look through them, not a single one is drawn perfectly from the side. They're all at an angle or front on, but considering this, I think things ended up alright. Now, since we have a bunch of time again, I'll continue where I left off before. After the Risk of Rain 2 characters, I decided to go back to drawing a few random things, just to see where I was, and also because I wanted to go back to making games rather than just making pixel art. So here's what I drew, and it was good to see that I was better, thankfully, and that I had more of a style than earlier. I still wasn't great yet, as you can see with the robot, where I had an idea in my head but I just couldn't get it right, but it was enough to move on, so with that I decided to actually start making this game. Now for the question you're probably asking, why have I been drawing a toaster and a chair? So I'll tell you what this game is roughly about. The basic concept of the story is that you were a worker for a home electronics company called Evil Inc., who is, surprisingly, an evil company. After signing the terms and conditions to get hired at the company, there is a brutal policy to increase worker efficiency, where you have to get an implant that is on a timer that gives you enough time to do your current task at your job before it is extended for your next task. If the timer runs out, you die, which is a strong motivator for employees. Unfortunately, if you are like our player and get fired, you are only given enough time to finish your final job at work until your time is up. So the way this becomes a game is because instead of finishing their final task, the player decides to go on a rampage to get to their boss's floor and demand their job back while they're on the clock. The way to stop the timer from timing out during this rampage is by killing other employees along the way and having their responsibilities transferred to you, because since you are responsible for the death, you become responsible for their work, giving you additional time to get to the top. So this still comes back to why am I drawing a toaster and a chair. My plan is that there will be 4 or 5 different floors, each with different theming. These enemies will be on the second floor, which will be the R&D floor, where the company is researching and testing new home appliances. While developing, I thought that developing the enemies on this floor first would be the most interesting and a good fun starting point, which is why I'm starting here. The game will probably be a roguelike with 3 types of upgrades. One will be a stat upgrade such as a stronger rope pull, another will be abilities like being able to chuck down a boost panel that boosts anything that touches it, and the final type will be from beating the floor and will be more of a side grade to switch things up, like telekinesis instead of your normal grapple, that pulls you or the physics object to the cursor instead of the other end of the grapple. I'll also provide difficulty modifiers and probably unlockable upgrades to add more replayability. So this is just the higher level overview of the game, just so you understand what I'm working towards, but this brings us to the chair being finished. Here's the chair in-game. You can see them roll around facing towards me. Maybe in the future I should add an animation for them rolling towards you, since right now things feel a bit static, but I'm not too sure about what I'd do for that. You can see that once I enter its attack zone, it starts winding up, and once the wind up is done, it waits until I'm ended again before launching. After it's done rushing at me, then it spins out of control and enters its stay state until it ends up at its initial state again. You can also cancel its wind up by damaging it, forcing it to go into its stay state again. All of this is how the chair was working in the last devlog, but now you can visualize each state that it's in and each action it's taking. And it's good to see that every animation was playing at the right time in the right state. That just leaves us with looking at the idle animations I made for when the chair doesn't know where you are. I took inspiration from the go-tos of being brought in a chair, like rocking in it and spinning in it. The chair picks one of the two randomly every few seconds, which is what makes this next sequence pretty insane. Now, I want you to pay attention to which animation they're doing, and remember it's a 50% chance for each. So we start off with just a single wheelie, and then we head straight into another one here, and then another one after that. And we're not done just yet, as they hit another sick wheelie right here, giving us 4 in a row. And things just keep getting crazier, as this is now our 5th one, but it doesn't just end there with a highly unlikely 6th one right after that. And then we have one final 7th one to cap it off, letting us witness history as this chair just hit a 1 in 128 and then spins away to victory, giving us the perfect end to this devlog. So thank you so much for watching. This took a long time to make, and I hope future devlogs don't end up being this long, since I spent almost the same amount of time editing the video as I did working on the game. My new schedule that I thought of last time has helped a big amount though, since I'm working on this every day for about half an hour, giving me the consistency I need to actually do things. I'm not too sure what I'll do next time. Maybe I'll look at upgrades and abilities, or maybe some procedural generation for making the different floors randomized, which I'm not looking that forward to, but maybe I'll save that until I have more things in the game. I'm not sure if I'll ever end up finishing this. There is a lot of work to do that will take a lot of time, but at least I'm keeping the scope of the game fixed. And because I'm just about entering my semester holidays, I can ramp up the amount of time I spend on this each day to at least an hour or maybe even a couple of hours. But anyway, again, thank you so much for watching, I really appreciate it, and just as a treat for watching all the way until the end, I'll give you the name of the game. I think I cooked here, and the more I hear it, the more I like it. I'm calling it Terminal Ferocity. So thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.